When they found him, he looked like a walking skeleton. He'd lost more than 60 kilos. No shoes, no phone, no idea exactly where he was. His home was a low heap of branches and plastic beside a muddy cattle dam. For 71 days, this is where he'd been hiding from the sun, from dingoes and from death. And the only reason he was still alive? He had forced himself to eat insects, frogs, and anything that moved slow enough to catch. This is the story of Ricky Megee, a man who went for a simple road trip and woke up in what looked like his own grave. And even today, some people still don't believe how it started. Let's go back to the beginning. Ricky was 3'5" AN ordinary Aussie guy from Queensland. Security work, driving jobs, nothing special. In early 2006, he bought a used Mitsubishi Pajero and left Brisbane. His plan was simple. Drive across the country to Port Hedland, find work in the mines or on a cattle station. Start fresh. The roads ahead were long and empty, but thousands of people make that trip every year. He had some cash, a few bags of clothes, and a rough idea of where he was going. Somewhere past the town of Barcaldine in central Queensland, he saw 3 hitchhikers. 2 men and a woman, standing in the heat, thumbs out. He stopped, let them in. They offered him a drink from a bottle. He took a few sips. And that's the last normal memory he has. When Ricky opened his eyes again, he thought he was dead. No car, no road, no hitchhikers. Just sky above him and heavy dirt over his legs and body, like he'd been dumped in a shallow grave. Something plastic had been thrown on top of him. His wallet, keys, shoes, and phone were gone. His head pounded. His mouth was dry. He clawed his way out of the sand and stood up. Every direction looked the same. Red dirt, low scrub, dry grass, shimmering heat. No buildings, no road. And then he saw them. Thin, yellow-brown shapes watching him from a distance. Dingoes. They circled and followed as he staggered forward. Testing this weak, barefoot stranger who had just crawled out of ground. Most people's first instinct is to walk out, find a road, any road. So Ricky started walking. 40-degree heat, no shoes, no hat, no water. Within hours, his feet were torn open by rocks and Spinifex grass. His tongue felt like sandpaper. His head spun. The sun roasted his skin. Every rise on the horizon looked like it might reveal a highway or a farmhouse. Every time he reached it, there was nothing. Just more shimmering land. At one point, he blacked out. When he woke, dingoes were closer, sniffing him, waiting to see if he was food yet. He threw stones and screamed until they backed off. But he knew if he kept wandering like this, he was going to die. He needed water. Soon, or it was over. After days of stumbling through heat and dizziness, Ricky saw something different. Greener grass in a shallow dip, birds circling. A faint shine of water. He'd found a cattle dam. Not a clean lake, just a muddy pool used by cows and wild animals. The water was brown, full of insects, and ringed with hoof prints. But it was water. He crawled to the edge and drank, not caring what was in it. He splashed his burned skin, felt his body cool down just enough. In that moment, he understood a brutal truth. If he left this waterhole without a way to carry water, he probably wouldn't reach the next one. So he made the hardest decision in survival. He stopped trying to escape and decided to stay alive long enough for someone to find him. Water meant he could live more than a few days. Now he had protected himself from the sun, the cold nights, and the dingoes. He started building a small shelter, what Australians call a humpy. He dragged branches and sticks to a spot near the dam. He found bits of old plastic, fence wire, scraps of canvas left by stock workers or campers. He bent the branches into a low frame, tied them with wire, and threw the plastic over the top. On that, he piled grass and leaves to block some heat. Inside, he scraped out a shallow hollow in the dirt as a bed and lined it with dry grass. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't safe, but it gave him shade in the day, some warmth at night, and a place to hide when the dingoes came sniffing around his camp. Now, he had water and shelter. The next problem was simple and terrifying. Food. The human body can last weeks without proper food. But without anything at all, your mind and muscles start failing fast. Around the dam, there was no farm, no stored feed, no friendly fridge. There were only small, living things. So Ricky started eating them. He knocked big bull ants off trees and ate them. He grabbed grasshoppers and beetles, crunching them down even as his stomach turned. He caught frogs on the muddy edges of the dam. Sometimes he scooped tiny fish, tadpoles, or leeches in the shallows. Occasionally, a lizard or small snake was slow enough to become a meal. He forced himself to chew and swallow again and again. Ants tasted sharp and acidic. Grasshoppers were just dry and crunchy. One frog, a handful of ants, a few insects. None of it was satisfying, but each disgusting mouthful was a few more grams of protein and fat, enough to keep his heart beating, enough to make it through one more night. Time began to blur. With no phone, no watch, and no calendar, days turned into a long, hot, endless loop. Wake up in pain, drink from the dam, patch the shelter, catch whatever you can eat, hide from the heat, wait for night. His body shrank. His clothes hung off him, bones pressed against burned skin. He shivered at night because he had almost no fat left to keep him warm. Insects bit him constantly. His muscles were so weak that even walking around the dam was exhausting. His mind started playing tricks. He heard cars that weren't there, saw lights on the horizon that turned out to be stars or heat haze, spoke to himself just to hear a human voice. Over and over, he thought about leaving the dam and walking out. Over and over, the same calculation stopped him. No bottle, no container. The next water could be days away. If he guessed wrong, he'd die alone in the scrub, not beside the one thing keeping him alive. Meanwhile, outside his little world, almost nobody knew he was missing. He hadn't been checking in with family regularly. He hadn't told anyone an exact route or arrival date. Some people only realized something was wrong when he didn't show up for work. A missing person report went out, but somewhere between Brisbane and Port Hedland is not a place you can search. No helicopter grid, no line of rescuers. If Ricky was going to be saved, it would be by luck, or not at all. That luck finally arrived after about 10 weeks. 2 station workers were out checking fences and watering points on a remote cattle property near the Northern Territory, Western Australia border. When they came up to one of the dams, they saw what looked like a crude shelter. At first, they thought it might just be an old camp. Then they noticed movement. A man, skeletal and sunburned, staring back at them. They walked closer and were shocked by what they saw. Deep-set eyes, ribs sticking out, skin eaten by sun and insects. He said his name was Ricky. Told him he'd been there for around 71 days. Said he'd been drugged, robbed, dumped, and left for dead. They gave him water carefully, fed him small amounts so his body wouldn't go into shock, and rushed him to a homestead, then to a hospital in Catherine. Doctors treated him for severe malnutrition, dehydration, and infections. News headlines exploded. Man survived 71 days in the outback on insects and frogs. Police investigated his story. Some details about the hitchhikers and his exact route never lined up perfectly. Not everyone believed every part of what happened before he woke up in that shallow grave. But some things were beyond doubt. He was found in a remote part of the outback. He was close to starving to death. And he had clearly been surviving on whatever he could pull from that muddy waterhole for a very long time. So what can we learn from those 71 days? Water first. His decision to stay near the dam, instead of walking blindly, is probably why he's alive today. Pride doesn't matter. He ate ants, frogs, leeches, insects. Disgust is a luxury. Survival isn't. Shelter saves energy. That ugly little humpy protected him from burning sun and freezing nights and kept his body from failing even faster. And finally, survival is mostly mental. He fought boredom, terror, hallucinations, and the constant temptation to just give up and walk into the desert. In the end, he didn't walk out as a hero. He was carried out as a broken, fragile man who had one thing going for him. He was still breathing. And in real survival stories, sometimes that's the only victory that counts. If you want more real survival stories like this one, from deserts, jungles, oceans, and frozen wastelands, make sure to like this video and subscribe. There are many more true tales of people pushed right to the edge, and the few who made it back